Please pray with me. Come to us, Holy Spirit, and speak to us today through the words of Scripture. Speak to us so we might hear your voice and be guided by you. Help us to build our houses, our lives, on the solid rock of your teaching and message for us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So this is part of our sermon series called All I Really Need to Know I Learned from Jesus. The idea that if we want to figure out how to live a good life, how to live as a human being on God's good earth, we can listen to the teachings of Jesus, that all we really need to know are in those teachings that he offers us. And that's why we're spending so much time in the Sermon on the Mount this time of year. Matthew chapter 5 through 7, that's one of Jesus' most important teaching sections in the Gospels. It's where we get the Beatitudes, it's where we get the Lord's Prayer, it's where we get the Golden Rule, and so many other familiar pieces of Jesus' teachings. So all we really need to know, we learn from Jesus, about what it means to be a creation of God. The title of the sermon series is a play on the Robert Fulghum essay that went around a couple decades ago now, called All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. He sat down and wrote down some of those key things that he learned as a child that have kind of helped him live a good life. Simple lessons like, play fair, don't hit people. When you go out into the world, hold hands and stick together. Share everything. Those core pieces of kindergarten wisdom that help us to get along and treat others fairly and live a good life. And part of the appeal, I think, of Robert Fulghum's list of kindergarten wisdom is that he takes the complexity of our lives and world and he boils them down to a few key pieces of wisdom that most of us learn, although we sometimes forget about in kindergarten. So today, the piece of kindergarten wisdom that we're holding on to as we look at our text and kind of drawing out the connections is play fair and don't hit people. We probably learned these lessons in kindergarten. If you were taking more than your fair share of the toys, you were told to play fair with others. Or maybe you remember being on the playground and you were trying to play a game with someone, but they seemed to just change the rules and play by their own set of rules whenever they felt like. And it made the game not very fun, right? So, or if you were playing hide and seek and the person was supposed to count to 30, but they only counted to 10, and they came and found you before you even found a spot to hide, that made the game not very fun. So we learned early on to play fair, that it makes the game more fun and more agreeable for everyone if we play fair with each other. It's kind of like if you were playing football or something like that, and the other team decided to make their touchdown worth 8 points and your touchdown was only worth 7 points. It would make the game nearly as fun. We also learned not to hit people. We learned that it's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to hurt. That even if you feel mad, it's not okay to hit another person. And it's interesting, these rules sound so simple, but when you look out at the world, at the adult life of our world especially, do we still live in a world where we remember to play fair with each other? Does it seem like we all play by the same set of rules most of the time? Do we remember not to hit people? That it's okay to express our anger, but it's not okay to hurt one another? It seems like if we were just to follow those two rules, a lot of things would be solved. Would we be in a state of almost perpetual war in our world if we remember not to hit people? So even though these are simple lessons, they're not always easy for us to remember. So our text for today, as I mentioned, comes from the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew presents Jesus as a teacher similar to many of the other rabbis in the time of Jesus. He presents him as a teacher similar to Moses, a teacher of the law, giving a law from the mountain. If you remember the story of Moses, when Moses received the Ten Commandments, he went on top of Mount Sinai and he taught the people God's law, what it meant to be God's people from a mountain. So similarly, when Jesus begins to teach, he goes up on a mountain and he teaches about what it means to be the people of God. And part of the problem with trying to preach the Sermon on the Mount is there's so much good stuff in here that I feel like almost every sentence could be a sermon on its own. I mean, you could make a sermon out of don't judge others, don't condemn others, to not pick up the speck in your friend's eye without taking the log out of your own eye first. I think that's kind of a funny image. Jesus is being funny here. Or, ask, seek, knock. That could be a whole another sermon. The golden rule, the narrow gate and the wide gate. And then building a house on sand or on rock. Each part of that could be its own sermon. So I'm going to focus in primarily on the sermon, primarily on the golden rule, which, as Jesus says in our reading, treat others as you want them to treat you. This is what the law and the prophets are all about. In this section of the Sermon on the Mount, we see Jesus entering a debate that was going on amongst a bunch of rabbis in his day. There's a story that around the time of Jesus, shortly before the time of Jesus, there was a man going around to all the rabbis in Israel saying, can you summarize for me all the law and the prophets while standing on one foot? In other words, cut to the chase, make it simple. See if you can summarize it for me, all while standing on one foot. And the story goes that this man went to one of the rabbis and he became angry and drove him away with his cane. But then the other man, he kept going to rabbi until he finally came to Rabbi Hillel, an ancient rabbi from shortly before the time of Jesus. And when he came to Hillel, Hillel stood on one foot and said, do not do unto others as you would not have them do unto you. This is the law and the prophets. In other words, take the whole Old Testament, the teaching of Moses, the history books, the prophets, and you can summarize it according to Hillel into not doing unto others as you would not have them do unto you. And so Jesus enters into this debate, but he changes it slightly. Hillel said, do not do, in a negative sense. Jesus changes it in a positive sense. He says, do unto others, or treat others as you want them to do unto you. Treat others as you want them to treat you. So whereas Hillel put it in negative terms, don't do those things, Jesus says, do these things as you would have them do unto you. So if you were just stating it in a negative sense, you could say, don't hit people. As long as you're not hitting people, you're doing okay. But Jesus, I think, wants us to go further. It's not just don't hit people. It's actually positively do those things that you wish other people would do for you. Part of what is fascinating to me about the Golden Rule is it automatically involves us in an act of empathy and imagination. When Jesus commands us to treat others as you want them to treat you, we have to place ourselves in their shoes in order to think about how our words and actions are impacting them. We have to imagine what their story is. We have to imagine how they're feeling. It's not just enough to not hit them, like do not do unto others. It's more, how would I like to be treated and how would it be if I was in their shoes? So if you have a sense in yourself that you want to belong, how can you offer that belonging to others? If you have a sense in yourself that you want to be loved, how can you extend that love to others? If you like being treated kindly, how can you treat others kindly? So in kindergarten we learned not to hit people and to play fair. But Jesus wants us to go even a little bit further and say, how would you like to be treated? Follow that golden rule. And we can see how out of the golden rule so many other things come about. I mean, as Jesus says, it summarizes all the law and the prophets. If you think about those 10 Commandments, Don't murder, don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't lie, don't covet. If you're following the golden rule of treating others as you would like to be treated, you're following all of those already. And similarly to these kindergarten rules, if you're treating others as you want to be treated, you will play fair and you won't hit them. You'll be kind to them. You will extend love and compassion to them as well. So Jesus summarizes, you could stand on one foot and summarize Jesus' teaching. You could say, treat others as you want to be treated. But part of what I wonder about when I think about these kindergarten lessons and the golden rule is they seem so simple and straightforward. But when we look at our world, when we look at our lives, it doesn't seem like we remember them. It doesn't seem like we hold on to them enough. We don't live in a world where people play fair all the time. We don't live in a world where people always remember not to hit each other. We don't live in a world where people treat others as they would like to be treated. So why is that? Why isn't the golden rule the gold standard for our life? And I wonder if there's a message that we've heard in our culture, in our world, that kind of thinks of the golden rule as flimsy, as kind of a nice idea, but not something that you really follow most of the time. I mean, is the golden rule kind of for schmucks or for people who, like, if you follow the golden rule, are you going to be taken advantage of? It seems like we hear this message around us that rather than the golden rule, we're supposed to look out for ourselves, me and mine, me and my family, and get what you can while you can. It seems like that's maybe a stronger message in our world than the golden rule. That rather than thinking about the other person's shoes, what life would be like in the other person's shoes, we are taught to think, look out for yourself, get what you can while you can. Put it another way, is playing fair for losers? Is that a way to get taken advantage of? If someone else is going to be greedy and take as much as they can, is playing fair for losers? Or in a world where people hit each other, is it more important that you hit them first before they hit you? Is that a message that we get from others? But while we might get that message from the world, Jesus gives us a different message. Jesus says, no, the golden rule is not for schmucks. Playing fair is not for losers. The world is not about how much you can get while you can get it. It's about loving your neighbor. Jesus says, no, that is sinking sand. The greedy may prevail for a time. Taking care of yourself might get you so far for a time. But what Jesus says is that kind of life is like building your house on sand. We have this choice between what is short-term and what is long-term. We have this choice between the ways of the world and the ways of Christ. That in the short term, we might be taught that the golden rule is flimsy, but in reality, it's the only solid rock on which to stand. Jesus says, those who hear my teaching and obey it are building their house on solid rock. When the water comes down and the waves come up, their house will stand. But those who play by those other rules, who forget to play fair, who do hit people, for those people who look out for themselves only and get away with what they can for as long as they can, that might look okay for now, but all other ground is sinking sand. So I think it's important that we return to this golden rule teaching over and over and over again, because it is our guide for the way the world truly works. That in the short term, other rules may prevail, but in the long term, Jesus brings us back to what is true, what is solid, what is worth building our lives upon. To treat others as we want to be treated, to play fair, to not hit people, to love our neighbor as ourselves. So today, let's build our lives, let's build our families, let's build our church on solid ground. To treat others as we want to be treated. to follow the ways of Christ. Amen. Please stand as you are able and join our hymn of the